Hey Gooners, this is Alan Smith.
This is Kevin Campbell.
Lee Dixon.
Colin Lewin.
It's Gary Lewin.
Charles Watts.
Dan Potts.
James Benge.
Danny.
Tom from the Gooner Talk here.
Ryan O'Cross.
Simon Collins. You may know me from the Evening Standard.
You may know me for my time at Arsenal.
You may know me from Arsenal or even the Hybrid Squad.
I'm a Birdcat Wonderland.
Being that physio sat on the bench next to Arsenal with my rubber gloves on.
The former Arsenal physio.
The Emirates press box, from writing, from Twitter.
From goal.com, from Twitter, from YouTube.
Football is the beautiful game and it brings us all together.
Sometimes there are things even more important than wins and losses.
And yes, even transfers.
Every 30 seconds, someone in this world gets diagnosed with blood cancer.
The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society works towards curing blood cancers
and provides support to families currently dealing with these diseases.
Gooners vs Cancer was started in 2017
by a lifelong Gooner who lost his father to leukemia way too young.
Since 2017, Gooners v Cancer has raised
$120,000 for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
And we need your help to keep the fundraising going in this year's campaign.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
No matter the size.
And every donation enters you into the Gooner raffle,
where you have a great chance to win amazing Arsenal prizes,
including game tickets, stadium tours,
signed men and women's shirts,
and maybe a retro signed shirt by yours truly, Lee Dixon.
Me, yours truly.
Yours truly, Super Kev Campbell.
So much more.
It's easy to take part.
Just go to www.goonersvcancer.com
and donate directly to the charity.
Pick the raffle prizes you want to enter to win,
and wait for the drawings at the end of the campaign.
Again, that's www.goonersversuscancer.com.
We all know that victory grows out of harmony.
Victory grows out of harmony.
Victory grows out of harmony.
With your help, we'll be victorious against blood cancer once and for all.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
Thanks for your support.
Thanks for your support.
Thank you for your support.
Damn, Mike.
That's going to get turned into something that it wasn't. That it's not supposed to be. That's a
Chamberlain gig situation.
No, come on. Come on. All right. So we have just entered our 24. So it'll have been a full day since we started by the time we're done with this hour. I've never felt more awake in my life. This is good. I'm going to make it. I'm positive now. So it is my pleasure, my distinct pleasure, to invite a man who just about 4 hours ago was accused of having more drip than both James McNicholas and Arseblog combined. He is the lovely, the talented Andrew Allen. Welcome to the Gooners Podathon.
Hey guys,
you good, mate?
Holding up all right.
Excuse me, real quick housekeeping. Mike, drip is on the list of words you're not allowed to use.
Did I have a pass for that hour then, and now it's gone again?
Yeah, now it's gone. Revoked.
Oh, Aston, I forgot to text you. It was on my mind this weekend. I heard of like a 8th grader say "bet" to another child, and I was like, "Oh boy, my boy would be mad at this."
let me ask you something. Andrew, are you familiar with the song Mo Bamba by Sheck Wes? Is it on your playlist?
I'd love you to give a rendition, please.
Yeah. Aston, would you love me to give a rendition of that? Because are you familiar with the song?
I listen. What I'm familiar with is I got to turn my camera off because I got to go.
Okay. Are you coming back?
Yeah, I'll be back.
Okay. Yeah, it's that kind of go. All right, perfect. So he's got to turn his camera off because the bathroom is actually in the camera shot.
I hope he mutes his microphone.
Yeah, well, you can't get everything from the guy. So, Andrew, It's been a while. Saw you in LA.
Yeah, you did. I saw you in London as well recently.
That's right. You have a good time. Peony Ween is fanboying right now over Double A. There's a lot of double A's involved with Arsenal. We've got the Ashburton Army, we've got Arsenal America, we've got Alcoholics Anonymous, we've got Andrew Allen. It's a wide ranging group, but everyone has the same initials.
I've been working with Andrew and Arseblog for 12 years now, and I still think there are plenty of people out there who think we're the same person.
Yeah, no, I remember the first time I had you on. You said like you're Andrew from Arseblog. He's Andrew from Arseblog. What's the
people are always sending me questions for the podcast and whatnot, and I'm like, I can't really help you with that. Ping it to the big man. But yeah, too many Andrews in the world. It's not a name that's going to be very popular from here on out, though, given everything that happened with Prince Andrew in this country. So
true. So by 20 years from now, it'll be flushed out.
No Andrews, no Nigels.
Yeah. So how did let's first talk about LA, and then once Aston gets back, then Andy goes to the bathroom, then comes back. It'll just be a free form hour. When we start to get to the last few hours of this, we just pack as many people in as we can. Just have absolutely no plan for the hour, but with the exception of the next hour, I need to have that one nailed down. So. Let's just say a little bit plastic in not coming to DC or New York. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I got to say, if you were a proper Arsenal fan, you would have come out to both, but you just jetted all the way out for the limelight, and because that's the only place that offered you a gig, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, look, I'd have absolutely loved to have done the first two legs. I mean, it looked incredible. I mean, Andrew was raving about the party in New York. I mean, obviously he was sort of said he was a sweaty mess by the end of it because that bar sounded like the hottest place on earth. But
well, that was the after party. Yeah. He for some reason he enjoys spinning tunes in the sweatiest, most. Although it's the one place in O'Hanlon's that he actually had room because there was a table separating him from everyone else. So maybe that's why he liked it.
You guys are going to have to organize something much, much bigger, or the organizers are going to have to organize something much, much bigger further down the line, aren't they? But yeah, no, LA was great. I mean, it's just, I've got a mate who lives over there anyway, so I kind of doubled up, and I sort of thought, well, a bit of Arsenal, a bit of a, see an old university friend and whatnot. But yeah, Andrew invited me along for the ride because we were slightly depleted without James, and yeah, I mean, it was a sort of, I'd say, slightly ramshackle 25 minutes up on stage at an LA fan event, and then we just chilled out and had a few drinks, which was really, really nice. Actually, it was quite a cool event, I thought.
Oh, I mean that event. I mean, I hate calling it a VIP event because it makes it sound pretentious, but it kind of. I mean, it was something very fortunate to be at, and the interaction with the. I mean, it's just people who you normally would think would be on the other side of velvet ropes, out of your reach, were right there. Standing in line at the bar with you, and it was just a really great event. Andy, how did you enjoy it?
Wasn't invited.
You were in Hawaii, weren't you?
Yeah, I was in Hawaii. My wife really fucked that timing up. Although I do remember Andrew when we got to LA, and I think he finally looked at us. He's like, "Oh, you two fucking guys again." That was the first LA trip.
Yeah, the first LA trip. That was, and who was it that said that? Was it Mark Ganella?
I think a lot of people were saying that about us.
That's true. Yeah, he's like, you guys are the busiest podcasters I've ever seen before, and the word podcaster was said with a level
very
of disdain
loosely, very loosely. Yes. I don't know, Andrew, if I've met you before, so pleasure. Great name.
No,
Great
I don't
name.
think so. Yeah. I mean, I met Aston for the first time in LA. We had a good chat at the party. That was great fun.
Yeah. So, and we've talked about it privately, but we'll act. Oh, I'm sorry. I just put Magic Aston. I was trying to make a joke about Andy, but that I've been up for like 84 straight hours. I completely fucked up. But what was your thought about SoFi Stadium? I mean, both from a footballing perspective as well as.
I have a question about that.
Okay.
No, Andrew, you give your thoughts because I'll jump in on the end.
I mean, it's it's pretty spectacular, isn't it? I mean, it's just another level. When I got there and we were walking around the outside and just kind of taking it all in, and there was this calming voice that was telling you all the things you weren't allowed to do, and it kind of felt like you're on the Apple campus or something like that. And then obviously you go inside and it's just this huge bowl underground. But to even just get to the seats, it was elevator, lift, all this kind of stuff, walking around. You were just like, you can just look around at the materials that have been used to make it. And it's just sort of on another level compared to the Emirates. And then obviously you kind of take your seats and you're looking at this huge, just absolutely massive video screen. And you're kind of hypnotized by it almost. We got talking to one of the guys who was responsible for that the whole build of that, and he was telling us that it usually has like 50 members of staff or something running it during an NFL game. I think they had something like only 5 or 6 doing it for the Arsenal game. They didn't have anywhere near as like complicated stats and stuff flying up during the game. But yeah, it was pretty incredible.
Did you feel a sense of ownership when you looked around that stadium because it was paid for by our money?
An interesting viewpoint on that situation.
Honest question, actually, who did pay for that? Is it the people of California?
I believe that he actually did not accept public funding for it. He took a massive loan, and
Okay.
maybe it was secured by other assets. But
It says he privately funded the construction of the stadium, which reportedly cost $5 billion.
Okay, and that was
and
while
the
leaving the city of
redevelopment of the area around it too.
Right.
Yeah, and maybe I think the development of the area around usually goes back to the city, right? Because they try and include like things that are bring money. So I'm going to LA in a few months, and the Rams are playing in the NFL, and my wife's like, "Do we want to go to a game?" And I'm like, the only reason I'd want to go is so I could see the stadium. So is it worth actually going to it? Yeah. Okay.
I think so.
Yeah,
it's not worth going back to over and over and over again. But if you have the chance to go,
Yeah, I mean, we're going to like the hockey game that night at Staples or Crypto, whatever it's called now. But I'm like, I just don't know if it's going to be an ass ache getting from one to the other with LA traffic. But then I'm like, we could always leave
they
early
don't
if
play
it's worth
Forum
going.
anymore because that's right across the street.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a lord.
I
Why
would
don't you take
I would
one of your
definitely do it.
helicopters?
Hey man, if the helicopter's available, I'll take it. So Mike, you brought up Hawaii earlier, and that's the reason why I couldn't go to LA. And so I wanted to ask Andrew, because he's been around, he's been part of the pod now with Arseblog for so long. I had a really unique situation happen. So I want to talk to all three of you about what's your most unique Arsenal encounter. And this is what happened to me in Hawaii. So I went down to the pool wearing the same kit Aston has on right now to grab chairs. Hawaii has a very large Asian population of tourists, right? Short flight, beautiful weather. So that's where they all go. And I put my towels down on the seat, and this Japanese guy came over and pointed to my shirt, engaged with me on all things Arsenal, but didn't speak a lick of English. And weirdly, we had a full conversation because he just knew players' names and the right things to say. And I didn't find out he couldn't speak English until I tried to actually talk to him about non-Arsenal related things. And he basically just like waved and walked away. And it was like unbelievable. And then later on that day, we go back to the pool and our sons are playing with each other because they have a football. They don't speak a lick of the language each other's, and they just engage for the rest of our trip. So going around the room, and Andrew, I'll start with you. Like, what's your weirdest Arsenal encounter that you've had based off of just like your relationship with Arseblog and or outside of that as just a club?
I had one kind of pre-COVID, which was pretty incredible, actually. I was on a really packed commuter train going to work, and like literally armpit to armpit. And this kid was kind of looking over my shoulder, and he kind of asked, "Oh, like, what are you reading about there? Like, I don't know who that player is." And I was reading an article about Emi Martinez, who, had been in goal for a couple of games or something. And I was trying to explain to him. And I said, "Oh, are you an Arsenal fan?" He's like, "Oh, I'm just over from Nepal, and I'm desperate to go to a game, but I've got no idea how to do that." And I just sort of said, "Well, it's a League Cup game coming up against, I think, Nottingham Forest or something like that. But I was pretty certain there'd be some tickets available." And I just said, "Give me your number. I'll message you later. I'll get you a ticket." And he ended up bringing a mate. And yeah, it was just this guy who was in the country for a couple of weeks on a kind of teaching exchange course. But we had an incredible evening. And you know what? At the end of the evening, the thing that he wanted to do even more than having watched Arsenal, was go and find the AFTV guys.
Isn't that ridiculous?
But
They're huge in Nepal.
Yeah,
People watch them from the top of Mount Everest. And
yeah.
You know.
Do you know what's strange about my encounter? And I didn't even think about it at the time. Seth Thomas brought it up. We never once talked about Tomiyasu, who's actually Japanese.
See, I would have just assumed, knowing the way your mind works, that would have just been you would have just said, "Oh, Tomiyasu." Like, I mean,
how does his mind work, Mike?
I was just making sure the guy didn't throw shellfish at me.
So what? By the way, have you had the shrimp experience yet?
No, in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I'm going to eat shrimp for the first time in like 20 years and see what my reaction to it is.
Do you know anybody that's allergic to shellfish, Andrew?
Well,
you do now, by the way.
No. My brother genuinely is allergic to all types of sort of fish and shellfish and whatnot. Yeah.
Really?
So I, not to jump into this, but you might want to tell your brother this. Like, I didn't know, because I got tested 12 years ago, and they're like, you're allergic to all shellfish. And then obviously the testing and science has come forward quite a bit. So my doctor said, like, hey, go get this blood test, and they can like actually get down to your like antibody level. And I found out like I'm only allergic to shrimp, crab, and clams. And then my doctor's like, your allergy's low enough, you can come in and eat it. So like, she's like, you can eat lobster, probably shouldn't, but yeah. So I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna eat some shellfish and hope I don't die.
But if you die, at least you'll be, surrounded by medical professionals.
Yeah, no. Aston, what's been your weird, aside from being asked, aside from us introducing you to the Arsenal world, you're welcome, which then led you to meeting the players and filming commercials. You're also welcome. What's been like your weirdest Arsenal encounter? Again, you're welcome.
Well, it has. So I want to say this is like the World Cup. What was it? 2012 was the one in South Africa, right?
No, the World Cup was
2010.
2010.
Oh, yeah,
sorry.
Germany, 10
not
South
12.
Africa.
Yeah. It was either. Yeah, I think it was. Pretty sure it was that one. Wear the right jersey, and the girls will take you home. That's all I gotta say.
Oh.
Where was this?
This was in Orlando. We used to. So I used to. Well, I still do. I watch every single World Cup game downtown Orlando. Like, it's completely packed. You go bar hopping and all of that. And I just happened to wear an Arsenal jersey, and yeah, I got picked up. I think the weirdest one. Where's the weirdest? Oh, I used to work at GameStop, right? And I used to have a GameStop on a college campus.
Nerd.
And as soon as I had and I used to do these like events outside of the store or whatever. And as soon as I wore a jersey one day, from that day forward, every single college kid wanted me to put FIFA on. And that's it. Like, I became the FIFA guy.
Hey, Aston, what would you buy, an Xbox or a PS5?
PS5, without question.
Anyone else got a?
Andrew, are you gamer? I think Andrew Mangan's a gamer, right? Or was?
Yeah, he is. I don't think I've played a computer game for about
Tetris?
15, 20 years. Yeah, I mean, like literally.
What was the last What was the last game you played?
It was probably FIFA something on the PlayStation 2 in around about 2005.
Nice.
Yeah,
I bet that was the year Bergkamp was on the cover. I bet.
Yeah, probably around there. Yeah, I mean, it was. I just, there's a lot of things. I feel like if I started taking up gaming again, like I did when I was a young kid, I think something would have to give.
All right, actually, here's a good question for you guys. There was an Arsenal player on the FIFA 2005 cover. Who was it? And I'll leave it there. And there was one on 2004 as well, but we'll go with 2005.
I mean, I would have to go with Thierry.
Thierry was on 04.
And Bergkamp on 05. No, Bergkamp wouldn't have been on 05.
Bergkamp was actually in the 90s, so it wasn't him.
Freddie Ljungberg?
No, it was Patrick Vieira.
Oh,
Patrick Vieira. Yeah.
It was Patrick Vieira. I think Shevchenko. It's hard to see on these, and I don't know who the guy is for Spain. It looks
the
like
last FIFA tournament that I did for Gooners versus Cancer. I got such an education on these new platforms because there's cross-platform stuff. So the Xbox X could play with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox S, could play with 5, and 5 could play with 4, but only if the person, I mean, it was depending on the version of FIFA. It made something that should have been very simple so freaking complicated.
You know what they should come out with next? Like, because we're gamifying everything.
Just one system that everyone can use.
No, the podcast manager, right? You play podcast manager. See if you can approach the top, and you can start off different podcasts. You can start off, at the top with an Arseblog. See what it's like, right? Using them, or you could start off real scrappy. Get like not another Arsenal podcast.
Not another Arsenal podcast. They replace Sebi with like bearded Gooner.
Yeah,
and their listenership goes through the roof, so they're then able to sell bearded Gooner and purchase
me.
Pods. And it, if you play your cards right, you end up with Andrew Allen and Elliot
on stage in LA somewhere. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Jesus. Is it fun? Is it? I mean, and I know that this wasn't historically the case, but essentially since the pandemic ended, has Andrew Mangan made a public appearance where he wasn't immediately flanked by Elliot? I was talking to him earlier. I'm like, I wanted to point out he's done a lot more pods in public, and I'm like, you did the the Union Chapel show in 2022 with Elliot. You did the Union Chapel show in 2023 with Elliot. You kind of hosted the podcast at the LA VIP event with Elliot, and I was like, has he done anything without Elliot? But it's nice. It's like a question. Bromance. It's a bromance.
They were. Yeah, it was nice to see them kind of together behind closed doors, as it were. Obviously I see them on stage together. But, oh yeah, you could just sort of. They were like an old married couple, like. But the magic hadn't disappeared there. They were still very into each other.
Yeah, the way our community works, that's being made into a fanfic right now.
Elliot knows how to like manage Andrew and what I mean, he'll know what to even bring up to him and what not to bring up to him. I mean, it is pretty much like an old married couple. It's kind of funny that you just type it that.
I have a question for you, Andrew, because you do the Arseblog news stuff, and I've been kind of doing a theme of how has the fan base changed over time, and like with concerns to you, is it getting easier or harder to write news and continue to write like a load of content? Because I think your workload's pretty crazy.
Well, I mean, a few years ago when we first started, the key thing was just trying to like find where the news was. Like you'd have certain sources you'd go to, you'd then run it through Google Translate, you'd kind of jot down everything you needed, and then you'd write it up. Whereas now, more often than not, the aggregators are there first. Something's already translated. Your next step is just trying to find the original source and making sure that they've got it right. I think I'd say it's kind of easier. There's just so much more of it. So the workload, is still pretty crazy. I mean, Arsenal haven't played for over a week now, but that hasn't meant that there's been anything, lacking on the content front. I mean, there's plenty going on. I say haven't played. The men haven't played. Obviously, the women had a disaster at the weekend, which was, quite a horrible thing to watch. But yeah, no, I mean, it's, I'd say, I think it's probably easier. There's always something to write about. But I feel
there
like
a certain type of story that they kind of gravitate towards now? Has the nature of the stories changed at all?
Look, I mean, the good thing, I'm really lucky. Like, I work in an environment where we're not kind of driven by the numbers. We've got a nice community. We have a subscription model. We don't have to worry about display advertising anymore because all of that's been removed. So really, you're writing the story because you want to write the story. But don't get me wrong. I mean, when I do occasionally glance at the numbers, it's pretty obvious that the transfer stuff is where it goes crazy, right? People have always got this massive thirst for transfer news, but really how much of the transfer news is actually news? It's like 90% of it is just sort of hot air that's just recirculated. And it's kind of, our game is trying to figure out when do we want to actually do stuff. I would also say that there's quite a lot of stuff that we hear is going to happen, and we don't really consider ourselves a sort of breaking news site, if you see what I mean. Like, we could do a bit more of it, but also, you know, we're really more about providing a platform for people to have a discussion these days, I think, around the stories, which is probably where we differentiate from the main site, the Arsenal.com, because they don't really have a comment section there. You know, people go into social media and they'll just shout into the ether, and maybe their, you know, contacts and their followers and their lists and whatnot will get involved. But really, we've just got a really nice community of people who just sort of, I think we're coming up to 1 million comments actually on Arseblog News.
Oh, wow.
Which started 12 and a half years ago. So yeah, 1 million comments is a lot of talking about Arsenal.
What's the one
I'm
story?
totally
that
off
you...
topic, but this is so good, Matt. Imagine what this
really
pod
good.
will be like next year. It'll be the Andy Rhodes Memorial Podcast-a-thon in honor of Mike and guests sharing heartwarming stories about what Andy was like before he was killed by a shellfish. And I love. There's no shellfish is a category, so I just imagine like, hi, I'm a shellfish. I'm gonna kill you.
Mike tried to take me on a hike up what he called a mountain, which was really just like a small hill behind his house, and it was just covered in shells. And I thought
They were like the fake synthetic shells.
I was like, why is the guy who sold me my life insurance taking me up this hill full of shells? Put 2 and 2 together, and we'll figure it out.
I changed the beneficiary right beforehand, but yeah, I mean, it was so funny. You were literally kind of very nervous, and you were at the top. You were like.
No, I was hungry and I wanted Buffalo Wild Wings. That's what I wanted to get down.
And that went well.
Andrew, what you mentioned before, like you hear things through the grapevine. I would say that Mike and I are lucky enough to be in a couple groups where we hear things maybe a few hours, if not days, before they're released. What's that one story that comes to mind where, whether it's a transfer or a firing, where you're like, oh, I knew about that, and now it's like this global news?
Do you know what? It actually predates. What was that, Mike?
And what's the next one?
Oh God, yeah, I'm not. We'll see.
When are we signing Mbappe?
Oh, I mean, we should have done that, 10 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Whenever Arsene was looking at him when he was 17. Do you know what? The one story, and this is actually probably how I ended up working on Arseblog, actually, was back when I was working as a sort of for a sports website. Me and the guy who I actually still work with in my day job had a contact inside Arsenal who basically let slip that Stan Kroenke was buying the club. And
wow.
This was when this was Danny Fisman selling his big shareholding back in the day, because Danny wasn't very well and he was looking to offload it so that the money could be passed on to family members. And we got wind of that, and it was kind of trying to figure out what we could and couldn't say without exposing the contact who told us, because it was such a tight knit group of people who actually knew. And in a weird way, we were so inexperienced, and as a site, we didn't really have that much gravitas. So there was a certain worry that people just wouldn't believe us. So we kind of almost seeded it through a couple of people who we trusted in the Arsenal community, and then had the story ready to go for the moment when I think it was actually a guy on the Sky News broke it, a guy called Mark Kleinman. And we kind of just pressed the publish button and had it all ready to go there. But that was pretty big. But we haven't had anything quite as big as that on Arseblog. I mean, you get kind of wind of people leaving or contracts and injuries is the other one. We heard a few days before the Jury and Timber thing that it was bad. But the club is so big now, whether they like it or not, there are people who are talking to friends, mentioning comments.
Well, the most recent experience that we've had with that was Thomas Partey's injury. I mean, in the time where it was still, I've heard this rumor, but I also have people, pictured him in training supposedly that day, which that was not necessarily a staged photo, but it was maybe not a current photo.
Well, I mean, actually, I can, it wasn't a staged photo. Yeah, I mean, I've had a chat with the club about some stuff like that. Use of photos, players being at hotels when they might not necessarily be fit. that type of stuff. They're doing anything. They'll do anything to kind of send rival teams off the scent a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point was they didn't want to announce it until after the United game, and until the lineup came out for the United game, and some jerk off didn't listen to the embargo.
Andrew, does that stuff happen kind of autonomously, or is that like directed from like Arteta or somebody? The use of photos and throwing people off the
shithousery.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all linked up, right? I can't say for certain, but I wouldn't be surprised if the manager was involved in some of the the small details when it comes to stuff like that. He's got a team and a squad to protect. He's doing these small gains or marginal gains or what have you. They'll do anything to try and make sure that they go into a game with as much of an advantage as possible. Yeah. I doubt Arsenal never lost any sleep over this type of stuff, I have to say.
Ryan wants to know, is there another American tour next summer? I mean, I'd say from what I understand, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% that there will be. I mean, have you heard any differently, Andrew?
No, I haven't heard anything. I mean, I know that they were weighing up Australia for last summer at one point.
Yeah,
but it's hard to turn down America really because it's just such a money spinner.
We're America, baby.
What I heard was that Mikel Arteta really does not want the long haul flights. He doesn't want to be that far away. I mean, this year Australia was a little complicated because of the preparation, I guess, for the World Cup. I guess that really doesn't matter because there was the World Cup. I was getting confused with the men's being in the winter. So Australia might not have worked out because of that, but if it's anywhere, it'll probably be Australia next year, other than the United States. But I think we're going to see them every single summer now.
I mean, you can't turn down that commercial value, and now that you've got these tournaments popping up, that have the sponsorship behind them, and it's a bummer for me because I won't get to be there because of the shellfish.
Yeah, I mean, also Messi's
Hawaii
now. Yeah, if they could just find a way to do it in Hawaii, that'd be fantastic.
There's no shellfish in Hawaii.
No, dude, it was fucking everywhere. It is kind of bullshit that they keep coming back to America and they never come to the place where I live, essentially with the Cronkies around the year. I'm like, they basically reside.
I mean, they haven't come to. There's so many cities.
That's what I'm saying. Like Chicago, come back to Denver.
That's because Denver is like the place.
Say it, Aston. What are you gonna say?
No, because Denver's like a giant, like if a college town didn't stop, like if gentrification happened to a whole city, that is Denver.
Always got to make it about. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, they have come to Denver. I feel bad for Chicago, Miami, although Chicago in the summertime. Come on.
Chicago is actually pretty nice in the summer. A lot of crime.
Where do you want to go, Andrew? I mean, because that's ultimately the club is asking me where you would like to go and factoring it in.
I mean, because I haven't done one of the New York ones, I want to go to a New York game.
The only problem with New York is that they have to play it. I mean, it is so miserable getting out to MetLife Stadium. It's like if you.
I'm happy with them playing at like the Red Bull Stadium or something. Like we can do a small one. I don't need 80,000 people.
That was a fun one. I didn't know Mike at the time, but that was a good one.
That made it slightly more fun for me, actually.
Yeah,
that I didn't know you yet.
I would think like that. They've got to do, if they come back next summer, they have to hit a different market like Chicago, Dallas.
Texas or something. Down there.
It's hard not to hit New York though because of just the population density, right? Like there's so many.
It's crazy that they've had 3 games in the DC ball. I mean, the biggest concentration of games that they've had is my hometown area. They've had 2 in DC and 1 in Baltimore in the last 4 years. I'm not complaining. It's fantastic.
It also breaks up that journey, right? I mean, 7 hours from London, you don't get too jet lagged. Whereas if you fly all the way to LA, it can kind of knock you out for a couple of days, and then you start to have dopey players and not useful.
But Chicago is really not any further because of the way that the flight path works. It might be half an hour further than flying to Washington, I think. But Atlanta's a good shout. New Orleans would in the summertime. Yeah, forget that. Although they could play in the dome. They could.
Listen, I have to say, as much as I suggest as much as I love Arsenal coming to me, don't come back to Florida. Let's like it's not safe. We've got hurricanes. It's always raining. To go somewhere else.
This is my first big yawn and of the podcast, and please don't take it as a commentary.
Honored, Mike. Thank you very much. Yeah, save that one for me.
I've been saving it for you. This is very important.
Andrew, last week we were chatting on the pod about what Arsenal rivalries kind of mean most to you, and I think for Mike and I, both growing up in England, it was a United kind of a little bit over Spurs marginally, but who would you say your biggest rival to Arsenal is from a club perspective? Not, obviously we all hate Tottenham for the reason, but is there another team that comes to mind?
And why is it Burnley?
I mean, I think you always carry around the pain of your childhood, right? And Manchester United caused me a hell of a lot of pain during throughout the 90s and then the early noughties. I know we got up, on them a few times, but like the peak Fergie years were incredibly difficult, and they left a lot of, they did a lot of damage to me psychologically. So whenever we beat Manchester United, whenever I see Manchester United struggling, whenever I see them score with 1 minute left to take a 2-1 win at the Emirates, have that goal ruled out, and then Arsenal scored 2 goals deep in stoppage time, as you can imagine, I'm a very happy person. United is by far and away the one that, outside of Spurs, I just love to win there. I'm not a fan of Chelsea. I'm very, always hold a grudge about them, since the new money rolled in 2003. So it's 20 years of a grudge. So watching them kind of faff around at the moment, doing whatever the hell they think they're doing, which is clever, is very fun. But yeah, I mean, there's always a bit of bite. I have some irrational dislikes. Obviously, I fucking hate Leeds United. You probably, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see that I often revel in the fact that they're doing terribly, or at least I was
going to say that's one of those sneak ones that, because of, I mean, if anyone started following, English football or the Premier League in the last, 20 years up until a couple years ago, they would have been like, why Leeds United? But there's some history.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some history there, but also like personal history. Like I had a girlfriend who lived up in that part of the world, and I went up there once, and a guy called me Harry Potter specky twat, and from then on, I hated Leeds United. So,
man, I don't mean to laugh, but
it's
just
personal.
a funny reason to hate a team.
Yeah, it's personal. It's
Wait,
very
what
personal.
What year was that? I mean, what, Harry Potter came out in the 2000s, early 2000s?
This would have been around about 2001, 2002, I think. Maybe a bit earlier, maybe 2000, 2001. I've never read Harry Potter. I've never wanted to since someone called me that. But
have you seen the movies? Or you just like
basically Harry Potter might as well play up front for Leeds United as far as I'm concerned. The two things are so kind of like interwoven now that I can't.
Do you also hate Graham Potter as a result? Just as kind of trapped
all people called Potter. Yeah, I mean it's any Graham Potter related Harry Potter puns dislike. Not.
I will not read any books for the same rationale as you. I will not read any books about fat, balding old Jews. I mean, I ever since someone called me that, I'm like, I'm not reading a book about you. Not reading a book.
Yeah, well, they see completely normal then.
On that note about hate, because I really do think that we're not spending enough time enjoying and reveling in the downfall and the implosion, because we don't know when the implosion will stop over at United and Chelsea. I've got to ask you, which one of these things are you enjoying more? Watching $1 billion get blow up in their face, or watching Eric Ten Hag get found out?
I mean, Chelsea feels like it's a kind of balloon that's going to pop somehow, whereas United is just a sort of real slow, gradual grinding down of their fan base, because they keep thinking the Glazers are going to leave, then the Glazers aren't going to leave, and then they just you can feel this sort of sense of like state of flux they're in permanently, which I'm greatly enjoying.
How funny was that? Watching them get all hyped about the Qataris after years of them shunning City for their ownership, then watching them all get on board for the Qataris just to hear the Glazers aren't selling the club.
I mean, the Glazers aren't making any friends in the business world, that's for sure. I mean, the way they're behaving is just mad, but I guess they know what they're doing because the share price isn't going that far down. I mean, it always seems to recover, and eventually they'll end up making a huge money from someone somewhere further down the line. But the longer it goes on like this, the more I feel like Ten Hag is going to have his work cut out, because there's just no clarity behind the scenes, right? And I love that. What I would say is, the one thing I have a slight concern about this season is I actually think Spurs are going to do all right.
Yeah.
Like, all my Spurs supporting friends are just saying we're having so much fun. And what I'm seeing there is where we were when we started to turn a corner under Arteta. It feels a bit like, they've seen something different. They've realized that all of the angst that went with, what will happen when we lose Harry Kane? They've kind of just let that go now. And now they're just back to playing a style of football they kind of like. They're seeing some players they like. There's some connections for me. I think they're going to be, I don't think they're going to, I'm not saying they're going to challenge for the title or anything, but I do think that they are going to be a bit of a threat for the top four this season. And obviously they don't have European football, so they can focus on that. They've got time basically for Postecoglou to kind of work a little bit of magic. And yeah, I mean, I know quite a few Spurs fans.
What is their Achilles?
Yeah.
Because outside of their 11, then they're an injury or two away, I think, from having a struggle. But they're playing good football, which is.
And if that injury, the defense is diabolical, I still think, and I think that'll probably be the way that they go. For them trying to play so open and kind of like modern football, I think it requires a really sound ball playing defense, and I just don't think that they have it in them to maintain that over 38 games. So I think wishful thinking maybe.
I think their more attractive style of football actually suits them worse in games against us, especially at our place, than the tactical boredom and anti-football of Conte and Mourinho does. I mean, they
we whoop those teams
with those strategies, other than last year.
Well, I said it last pod. Like, their win backs haven't been tested yet. They're young. When they come up against, Saka, Martinelli, Rashford, that type of a player that's going to put them on their heels, then we're going to see if they're going to be a team that sticks around.
By the way, I don't know. Peeny.
I did say that. I agree with that. I think James Maddison injury. Oh man, when he went down for England the other day, I was like, oh, please stay down, and then he popped back up. That slimy cunt.
I don't understand how Peeny thinks people are actually going number 2 in like 1 minute and 45 seconds. I mean, that's not only Jason Punchin can do that.
Ron Slayman could do it.
Well, that wasn't a number 2.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Never mind. Sorry,
I mean, he didn't go behind me. He didn't go.
Hey, you don't know. You don't know if he shit himself and dead had to pee. Like, you don't know.
What about Lineker? Lineker did it.
I was about to say, who was the player that? Andrew, we're going to play a new game here called "What did Gary Lineker do in his pants?"
Andrew, I want to grab your opinion on Arteta, and so I'm going to say something. Aston's going to roll his eyes and then yell at me, but I would like to finish my statement before anyone speaks. Right, so I'm kind of looking at Mikel Arteta in the, like Arsene Wenger's long tenure really transitioned Arsenal from like a well-established club to like a global club. I want to kind of think about like Arteta in that same trajectory, but from the sense of, we saw Unai Emery and Freddie both take over a squad that was toxic. And now we're seeing Arteta get that time to really reestablish Arsenal and remold the club. Tell me a little bit about like your personal opinion on like his trajectory so far. And I think there's still many years in front of him to really, cement his legacy with the football club more than what it is already. But do you kind of see him on that Arsene Wenger trajectory where he's ultimately changing the culture of the organization rather than a manager just coming in and changing pieces within a starting 11?
I mean, I actually just finished reading Charles Watts's book, which I would thoroughly recommend. I thought Charles did a very good job in a very short period of time as well, as he said earlier. Yeah, I mean, what he's done has been fascinating because it feels quick in a way, but actually it's been over quite a long period of time now, because the period when we were during COVID and it was all behind closed doors, it kind of felt like Arsenal was existing, but it wasn't really something that we could all properly be a part of. It definitely feels like once the crowds got back into the stadium that things kind of had liftoff. I don't see Arteta sticking around for 2 decades like Arsenal did. I just don't think modern football is going to be forgiving like that. And I do think that if he can get Arsenal to a point where they win the league and they're actually challenging for the Champions League on a regular basis, that will be job done really for him. There will be a lot of interest in him over the course of the coming years. How long are the Kroenke family going to keep bankrolling Arsenal like this? Is it until we win some stuff and then they might pull back a little bit? Because actually, once you've won something, you've had the joy, do you just start to think, oh, maybe it can hold its own a little bit, less kind of urgency on that front. Tactically, I mean, I think, actually what the biggest thing has been really is when Arsene left, Arsene was trying to do too much on his own. The football world had grown big and complicated, and there were people who were handling lots and lots of different elements. And Arsene had a very, very tight team, but ultimately he was the guy who was kind of making the final decisions, right? I think Arteta is actually pretty good at delegating, and what we're seeing is a better structure behind the scenes, maybe a little bit more balance there. I do still think that we are a team that's and a club that's very dependent on him at the moment. I do think he's the one at the vanguard. He's the one pushing the club along, and he's the one with the big ideas and the big dream, which is amazing. And I think if for whatever reason he was gone tomorrow, it would be quite difficult to replace him. I don't know. I mean, it's just so early, isn't it? We've got one FA Cup, a couple of Community Shields. We came second. We've come fifth. It's not really an Arsene's level at the moment. We really need to, actually win some more domestic silverware, I think, and then we'll see. I mean, if Arteta wants to stick around, there's a bit of me that wouldn't. This is an exhausting job, and I reckon if he gets to 7 or 8 years, he might think about doing something different. I mean, you look at the clubs who he's played for, Barcelona, PSG, Rangers even, he might want to have a go at the Spain job. I mean, there's big clubs with an emotional connection that he could, obviously the emotional connection with Arsenal is driving a lot of his passion at the moment for the project. And I think he could easily find that in some other rival clubs, big rival clubs. We'll see. I mean, I like him. I'm really impressed also with the way the club gave him time when he needed time. I kind of sensed at no point that they were going to get rid of him because, again, I felt like the people above him weren't really the ones driving the project, and they were relying on him to show them how things needed to be done. So I felt like he had a lot of control in those, even in the worst times. I think back to a Sunday night defeat to Burnley when I think we were suddenly hovering over the relegation zone, and Aubameyang had scored an own goal and Xhaka had been sent off, and it was all miserable in the middle of the pandemic and all the rest of it. But yeah, we've come a long way. I love Arsenal at the moment. It's such good fun.
It really is. And like, I think Aston said it on the last pod. The thing we want to see from Kai Havertz, right, is the fans when he whiffed that shot was like, hey, start singing that song. And so, the atmosphere at the Emirates, right? Like, do you think it's the old guard getting into it? Do you think it's the new younger supporters that are coming through that are saying like, hey, is it the club that's created? Because I know for a while they were kind of putting out like, hey, how do we get a better atmosphere within the Emirates? But from your opinion, like, where do you see that coming? Or is it just a mesh of everyone? Because we saw it last year with Saliba. The own goal went in, and immediately the crowd are behind them, like, hey, we're going to sing the song. And I think that's probably what Kai needs, or any of our players need, right? It's just that pickup.
I think there's a combination of factors, really. Like, I know coming back into the stadium post-COVID, there was a different demographic in the stadium anyway. I think a lot of the older guard maybe took a season ticket holiday. Some younger guys came in. They obviously were desperate for a taste of live football, as you would be if you'd been on a waiting list for a long time. But also just, me personally going back to the stadium, the appreciation of something which had gone, which was such a regular thing in my life. How could you not get kind of so emotional and kind of like realize, okay, this is something that matters. I need to appreciate it more. I think having a squad of players who you like helps. Having a few guys who are homegrown. I mean, on paper, a passport shouldn't matter, but there's an extra level of pride, I think, that comes with the HLN guys coming through. Having a young team, I mean, it's a lot harder to shout at a 19-year-old kid who's trying his best than it is at someone who's
not for Mike. I don't know if you heard that earlier, but
I mean, some of the guys we've had in the past, they were just slightly more complicated characters, and Arteta obviously realized very, very early on, from the get-go that connection needed to be worked on. I think the club have to have credit because in the aftermath of the Super League stuff, there was a bit of a reboot and a kind of, okay, we need to engage the fans. We need to find some common ground. We need to work on this because if we continue to be broken, then we're never going to get anywhere. So they deserve credit. I think, there's been a changing of the guard in a few important positions around the club. And I think there's some new ideas and, I'm genuinely kind of excited for the way they're trying to handle fan relations now. There's a lot that still can be improved. Obviously, I think there's rightly a lot of people are very frustrated about the ticket system and the membership levels and all the rest of it. But, these things will be worked on, I think, over the course of the next few years because, Arsenal's such a massive club. It's hard to just sort of click your fingers and change things and fix all the problems. Sometimes it takes a bit of time. So yeah, we'll see. But it's good at the moment. It's just it's something to look forward to. And there were moments definitely in the last weeks and months of the Emery era where you were kind of going as a season ticket holder because it was your responsibility to go, but you kind of sat there, watched the games like this, and then left.
How did that translate for you to your work? Because there was a time where Mike and I were podding, and you could just tell that there was no enthusiasm behind it because it was the same conversation all the time. And I know for you, it's like new content. But how did you have the same kind of thoughts towards work where you're like, this just isn't fun?
I think it was the last days of the Wenger, the last years of the Wenger era were quite sad because what you saw was a great man's work kind of unraveling a little bit, and it wasn't fun being in a stadium where it was quite clear that people weren't just going to turn around and forgive him even if he won a trophy. Like they'd made their minds up that it was time for him to go, and ultimately the club higher up realized that, and it was just very, very sad. I think it was doing match reports and basically having them pre-written because you knew exactly how a game was going to play out, away from home against a big six club, for example. Yeah, boring, tiring, frustrating. It is definitely much more fun now. I mean, the Emery era was different in a different way because obviously you spend a lot of time kind of like listening to what they say, writing up their quotes and all the rest of it. And because his English was not amazing through no fault of his own, I mean, he was trying his hardest. Like the quality of the soundbite wasn't great. So when you went to write a story up, what you were working with was pretty basic stuff. He wasn't able to necessarily convey the bigger picture that he might have been able to do in his native language. Whereas Arteta now is actually, from the first press conference, so clear and concise in what he wants to say. Interestingly, he seems to be getting a little bit more playful, a bit more confident around the media. I think I noticed, in the press conference before the Man United game when he was being pressed on his tactical decisions and he started talking about how he travels to the training ground in the morning, and sometimes he'll do this because he's got a burst tire, or one day he's got to drop the kids off at the school. But basically what he was doing was playing around with them like a cat with a mouse, because he was trying to get to the point was, I'm getting asked these questions by people who don't know nearly about as much as me about football, which I thought was a reasonable point, because sometimes journalists and fans just don't have the information that he obviously has at his hands.
Let me press you on that for a second, because I do think that, especially given the change in dynamic, the change in stature of where Arsenal is, we're seeing a change in Mikel Arteta, especially with his relationship with the media. I think the other week, what was it? He goes, "I'm so happy."
Yeah,
So
yeah.
happy. And or was it talking about Kai and his wife? He's like, I went to Kai, tell him, like, when I first met my wife. Are you guys feeling that? Do you guys feel that Mikel Arteta is a little more jovial? Like he doesn't have that look of like dead man walking anymore?
Yeah, I mean, look, when your back's against the wall and the question is, what was your take on that Arsenal performance when it was quite obviously shit and we'd lost? That's difficult. But now he's in a position where the team are playing the way he wants them to play. And if they don't quite produce at the highest level, then, it doesn't mean that they're suddenly a terrible team. He's got the confidence of a man who realizes he's moving everything in the right direction. So yeah, for 100%, he's sort of a bit more combative and a little bit more confident and a little bit more, jokey, I think. I also think he's kind of quite well briefed now. He comes into these things like that story about how he gets to the training ground. He'd probably spent the whole week thinking about that.
Yeah, because he knew the question was coming.
He knew the question was coming, right? So
it also helps that he's grown up in England through the years and he knows how to play the press. Like, it's got to be awkward for Unai Emery or one of these new managers who isn't English speaking, like you said, to come in and get those questions. I don't know what it's like in France, Spain, but the media in England have always gotten that bad rap of like not giving up. And it's like, it's got to be easier for Mikel, having been interviewed for so long in England, and knowing some of these reporters by name before taking up the club,
Yeah, they're more familiar faces in the press room. You get a bit more of a back and forth with them. I think, as I think Stephen there just said, like he's throwing anecdotes around like primetime Arsene Wenger, and it's true. Like after a while, you kind of have that confidence to hold the room because the faces are familiar, and actually, people haven't got it completely in for you if you're kind of sitting in the higher echelons of the table. I do think he's a funnier guy than we see. When we were losing, all you got was that kind of death stare kind of element in some of the post game, and it's obviously very difficult. Like, you get a camera stuck in your face 10 minutes after your team's lost, you're going to be angry. But he's been very he's been in good form recently, and it's good to see, really, because that again, it just exudes the level of confidence you need to keep pushing. Pep obviously does his own thing. I think actually Arteta is a bit more engaging than Pep.
Can I be real? Can we, again, on that, is anybody else sick of Pep? Like, I listen, I used to like let it kind of roll off back when he was at Barcelona and in Germany, and now here, his press conferences are like, haha, but he's kind of like an asshole, right? Like we kind of like, he does that whole thing where he's like, oh yes, this team is the greatest team we've ever played. We're so scared of them all the time. Like, does he ever get off of his condescending perch?
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who realizes, I think, that he doesn't really need the press because the reputation he's built for himself over the years has been, he's basically untouchable. Whereas I think Arteta still recognizes a balance there. And we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, I hope Arteta doesn't get kind of arsey and jerkish about it, but he's been pretty good so far, I think.
Let's do a prize draw here. I had to talk because people are starting to get worried about me.
Dude, Mike's tired when I'm texting him off camera and he's responding to me on air.
Yeah, I'm starting to get a little punch drunk here.
That's fantastic.
But yeah,
what are you on? What hour are you on? 24, 23,
25 now at the end of this, or 24 at the end of this?
We are, considering we started at 1:03 p.m. Eastern time. We are about 5 minutes away from hitting the 24-hour mark, and then we've only got 3 more to go. But we want to do a prize draw. Our next hour is a really special one as well. We are waiting on one of the guests, so we'll bring in the 3 new guests. Sophie's just done something on camera that I don't know if she I don't know what that was, but
hey, so.
She was backstage, so you didn't have to bring it up.
Well, but there's a lot of things I don't have to do that I choose to do.
Warren's now sitting there like, oh, I can't move. He's gonna call me out on this.
One of these one of these. One of the things I want to do before we switch over to the next hour is a prize draw and an update. So, by the way, we're with 3 hours left. I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, go to goonersvcancer.com. That's the reason we're all here. We're raising money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And there are actually four, although one of them's about to happen. Pretty amazing prizes that are left. You've missed out on the first 21 of them, but there's still time. And of course, it's a good cause. As I've been saying,
$28,000 raised, 28,000. We got two more, 2,500 left, and we're at goal.
Well, and that goal of 30,000 was for our fundraising campaign, which began on July 15th of this year and runs until June 30th of next year. So that goal might have to be changed because I think we could potentially hit it today, but definitely very, very soon. But the podcast itself, last year, the days leading up and the day itself, we raised $6,186, which was a fantastic outcome and better than the year before. This year, we have raised $12,922 just in the days leading up for the thing. So we are almost at double of last year, and overall for the summer, including the summer tour, 28,222. Absolutely amazing, and that's where I'm getting my energy from right now. So what we're going to pick now, the raffle prize is for a little. I love this word. I'm going to be able to use it. It's for a little bespoke Arsenal prize pack, and that we've curated for you. It involves 3 Arsenal golf balls. This is compliments of Mark Brindle at the club. 3 Arsenal golf balls, an Arsenal drink thermos. I'm not going to bother taking it out of this, but it's one of these insulated metal thermoses, and a shot glass, which I will not be using in the final hour because I don't want to ruin it for anybody. This is actually a all-star Washington, D.C. Shot glass here. So you can get drunk and drink cold alcohol and liquor while playing golf with this prize pack.
Specifically Malort.
Yes, yeah, it's for Malort. That's what it's for. And so the winner. Let's hold on. I want to allow you to do the drum roll just once. So let me get ready. The winner of the prize pack is Aston. Daniel Robert. And the reason I'm so excited about this, last year he donated money at the beginning of the podcast, sat here through all 27 hours of the podcast only to not win anything. And it almost became a running joke towards the end of it. Daniel has won a prize pack, and it kind of sucks because I got to ship this stuff over to England now. Although maybe I'll just bring it to him in October when I come over. But congratulations, Daniel Robert. I'm thrilled for you. You are a winner you've always been a winner in my eyes, but especially now. So thank you. And Andrew, it's the end of our hour. It's the beginning of hour 25. I've been on air for 24 straight hours now, and thanks for taking me to that point, Andrew.
Congratulations.
I've never been.
Look, best of luck for the last few hours, guys. You're doing an amazing job. So yeah, love it. Well done.
Daniel's in the chat. He has won an Arsenal thermos, insulated thermos, golf balls, and a shot glass, and a 4-pound steak from Weatherspoons. So fantastic. Thank you so much. And Andrew, I hope to see you again in late October when I'm over, and I'll be hitting you up.
Sounds good. Andy, good luck with the shellfish.
Hey, thank you. Hopefully we'll meet next summer.
I hope so.
All right. Take care, buddy.
See ya.
All right.
Hey, Gooners. This is Alan Smith.
This is Kevin Campbell.
Lee Dixon.
Colin Lewin.
It's Gary Lewin.
Charles Watts.
Dan Potts.
James Benge.
Danny.
Tom from the Gooner Talk here.
Ryan Oakcastle.
Simon Collins. You may know me from the Evening Standard.
You may know me for my time at Arsenal.
You may know me from Arsenal or even the hybrid squad.
About Cat Wonderland.
Being that physio, sat on the bench next to Arson with my rubber gloves on.
The former Arsenal physio.
The Emirates press box, from writing, from Twitter.
From goal.com, from Twitter, from YouTube.
Football is the beautiful game and it brings us all together.
Sometimes there are things even more important than wins and losses.
And yes, even transfers.
Every 30 seconds, someone in this world gets diagnosed with blood cancer.
The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society works towards curing blood cancers
and provides support to families currently dealing with these diseases.
Gooners vs Cancer was started in 2017
by a lifelong Gooner who lost his father to leukemia way too young.
Since 2017, Gooners v Cancer has raised
$120,000 for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
And we need your help to keep the fundraising going in this year's campaign.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
No matter the size.
And every donation enters you into the Gooner raffle,
where you have a great chance to win amazing Arsenal prizes,
including game tickets, stadium tours,
signed men and women's shirts,
and maybe a retro signed shirt by yours truly, Lee Dixon.
Me, yours truly.
Yours truly, Super Kick Out.
So much more.
It's easy to take part.
Just go to www.goonersvcancer.com
and donate directly to the charity.
Pick the raffle prizes you want to enter to win,
and wait for the drawings at the end of the campaign.
Again, that's www.goonersversuscancer.com.
We all know that victory grows out of harmony.
Victory grows out of harmony.
Victory grows out of harmony.
With your help, we'll be victorious against blood cancer once and for all.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
Thanks for your support.
Thanks for your support.
Thank you for your support.